June 9th, 2022. We're back. I'm back in New York, and so I'm just watching today's 4 o'clock news to see what I've missed in New York while I was gone. There was an interesting ride home. There was whatever. When a route that I had never been before. Normally I drive and I follow the route, but Lewis was driving. He knows more than I do about New York for certain. He knows the ins and the outs. I know nothing compared to him, especially of the road systems. So I was just in the passenger seat admiring some of the architectural designs of the buildings. He was mentioning things that I had never heard, like with him and my mom, which was nice. Family stories. And then I come home. He takes me through a certain part which I had never heard of. I didn't know existed. Now, it's bothersome for me because there's a part, I know nothing about Brooklyn, but in the local New York City school system, for instance, when I first entered in kindergarten and first grade before we moved in second grade, there was this, there was no, it didn't feel like there was teaching the children of the history of the city, the architecture, the family names that contributed, like the donors that are, I've heard words like foundations and the people and the service members. Like that. There's some integration that I'm lacking at the moment for knowing who, in what order is constructed is more important than the others in the social way of acknowledging pieces of history in the local area. Excuse me. Not for lack of trying, again, as I come across things, but, and then, so he took me through a place that had an archway I had never seen, never even heard referenced, and then some. He said they were Corinthian with eagles at the top of them. He said he might have that reference wrong. But along those lines, he said perhaps they were more Greek, but he didn't have the architectural word for it, nor did I. Again, not studying architectural design, although I would have probably rather loved it, but I was looking in the section of New York I had never been to, of all of the different changes throughout the neighborhood. Then he was bringing me through, showing me some of the real estate. He used words like gentrification and other things, and we went block by block. I was looking for the architect and signs and things, and it was so busy. And in a public health sense, I was slightly concerned only on a public health of capacity and ratios between how to keep a city safe within a certain other thing, which I know there's professionals, but always being vigilant and looking out in case something gets lost in the system. I've been having trouble myself. And then he said it was something about an army plaza, which I had never heard of. But I mean, the detail work that somebody laid, and I don't know the year, I don't have references, I can probably go online, but just driving through the area, not knowing what it was called, not seeing any signage for it per se. And then it led into where the first U.S. Army recruiting center I've seen. We went through there. I was like, oh my goodness. It's, again, I'd never, whatever. But watching what was around as we went through, and then again as the architecture changed, and block by block there were rectangle flag choices in some sections as we went through this process. There were people on the street, and there were multiple references in letters. There were some languages I don't speak and I don't recognize. It was a visual overload, to say the least, in things that I'm not versed in. Of course, there's this roller coaster of whatever, between what my studies have been and what Lewis assumes I mean, which is not always what I mean, but whatever. And then I come home and I see that there's a local, the district attorney, I don't know if they consider them community leaders, but I mean, I would. He put on an event about this gun safety thing. I see the crowd that showed up. Again, I've myself am having trouble finding out where the entry point for service would have been, where, like, if I was on a highway of life, on a road to success and participation within North America, where was the ramp to make sure that I had a communication line or a communication anchor to someone or something within the system in this New York agreement of see something, say something. I don't know how far that carries, that message, but I do hear the locals saying it a lot. So the district attorney in this one position says, even because he held this event, he said, well, I'll put it on, he'll say it in his own words. But I thought that was interesting. And then Facebook reminded me that around a year ago, I had run across something which was when I was a child, it was something in the movie theater productions. And again, I don't know what was involved in it. I don't know if it was a premonition into a warning of this is what the situation looks like and is frightening to the professionals. I don't know if it was a challenger or a competitor allowing something that was disrespectful out in the movie theaters, but it was, I don't know how to read the situation for certain. I'm just an independent on this. But it was in the media almost now in year 2022. It is more frightening than ever about something called Ernest Goes to Camp in a school bus and so on and so forth. And I didn't see the movie, but I have seen the trailers for the movie. At the time, it did not leave the best impression as a child. so I didn't want to honor it with this whatever, but the movie trailer for me was enough to know that I want to show respect, but I also understand that sometimes messages come in different formats, and to have an open heart and open mind in it's in the universe, so just be aware kind of a thing. Self-reminder, if you will. So this is what I came home to today, which also has a cross. It's amazing the way that they have this lined up universally, with what I witnessed and experienced just driving on our way home. A portion of it's one of the boroughs on our way to where we are. So it was on the route. We passed a place I had referenced once earlier called Greenwood Cemetery that I never knew existed. But again, the gothic beauty of thinking that how it must have gotten built in a really rudimentary, like, craft way of how much skill it took to the goth looking entryway, the wrought iron fences, the cemetery just beyond. And we didn't stop or go in, but and there's a botanical gardens over there. But it is interesting because Lewis said that we will go back, because I mean I could just to look at the craftsmanship and detail that went into the graveyard that's over there is amazing. And then to see what's just around it. And I don't know any of the history on it. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I mean, perhaps a historical society, but again, I don't know if just newcomers are allowed. I have to whatever.
A summit in Brooklyn brought together young people.
A summit. I don't know what that differential is.
To curb gun violence. Dozens of high school students participated in the Anti-Gun Violence Youth Summit in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
So this is interesting because these are high school students.
Students brainstormed ways to address and prevent violence in their communities. The Brooklyn District Attorney says that bringing students into the gun violence conversation is key to creating change.
There's an opportunity to prevent a lot of this gun violence, and our young people are really the front lines, and having them share information when they see something that's troubling to them with an adult and how to get that reported will keep young people safer.
How to get it reported. That is the most curious dilemma. At 43, I mean, I went through the New York City school system, or Long Island, New York City. It's one continuous piece of property. But again, whether it was the tail of a fish, whether it was the head of the fish, whether it was the eye of the fish, whether it was the body of the fish, wherever because I went to each of the counties, not Brooklyn necessarily, but I went to each of the counties, and I entered for education at some point, which within each of the counties, and a system of conversation or a way to participate actively or stay active or even stay in the know, with the people who do this professionally. That part was what was deficient within the first 13 years of what they call public school amongst the citizens and the society of the common area, within this Northeast. They didn't present this communication path, that if one had a problem, I mean, if you have an emergency or a trauma, I know how to report that. But as some of these other things that I wouldn't have ever have even thought of as a child, how does one protect oneself and stay aware without having to do this social media at this moment? There's like I've heard people say, in business, look for a hole in a market and try to fill that hole, that void, that whatever. But that's for money making opportunities, and at this point I don't have available that. I don't even have that option available to me. But in trying to fill and find that void, I've found several other places where I just didn't realize how things, if they were established at some point, how they might have disappeared, in a lost civilization type of a way in ancient history, and then some revolving current history. So again, I'll let him finish what he was saying.
Today's summit is part of an initiative to reduce shootings in Brooklyn this summer. The effort includes gun buybacks and legislative advocacy.
Federal prosecutors are recommending singer.
So that was interesting. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. The archway was very ornate. I mean, again, where to pursue, even finding out about the history on that, I'm not clear. There's some kind of disconnect between within, I mean, it would be a very long walk, but between, like, say, the end of the island is Montauk, and the head of the island being somewhere else. I don't know if a town necessarily, on one fork anyway. But the fact that just in that simple, if it was a fish, it would be either a nerve pathway or a spine or a I'm not a fishmonger either, so I don't have their proper words, but it's within the body. And for the communication within one area to the other, for growing up, to be part of a civics project or to be part of a civilization or a citizenship, and to take part in and pride in one's area and things, I'm concerned that there hasn't in my quest to try to find answers on other things, just how I'm having trouble finding the words and building what I can see in easy, like, reach, of how things and where to whatever. It leaves me uneasy, let's just put it that way. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.